So in section 6.4 and section 6.5, what's happening is we're throwing in circle theorems, a material that we know from GCSE, and we're expecting you to put that together with everything else that we've seen so far. Now, on the video for section 6.3, the last few minutes of that video, I'm talking about the fact that chapter 6 is difficult because it's mixing up all sorts of ideas from elsewhere in the chapter, from elsewhere in the textbook and elsewhere that we in our maths knowledge, and we're putting those together and expecting to tie them all into one difficult question. So I think there are some helpful bits of advice at the end of that chapter. I'm not going to repeat them here. I'm just going to say that I'm going to show you the new bits of information, and then I'm going to say to you this gets difficult not because this information in section 6.4 and 6.5 is hard, but because you have to mix it up with everything else, okay? And if you want to hear more about that, then the video for section 6.3 is the place to go. So, we are reminded that a radius meets a tangent at 90 degrees. We're reminded that if you have the perpendicular bisector of a chord is the diameter of the circle, okay? Or in other words, if you've got a diameter that hits the chord in the middle, then the angle is going to be 90 degrees. Or if you've got a diameter that hits a chord at 90 degrees, it's going to bisect the chord. So we can use that fact in lots of different ways, okay? We also know from GCSE that an angle, if you've got a diameter there that goes through the centre, and you take an angle at the edge of the circle, then this angle here is 90 degrees. And that's a special case of this fact, that if you take one point on the circle and another point on the circle, you make an angle with the centre, and you make an angle across there, then this angle, if this angle is x, this angle here is 2x. This angle is double this angle. So if I move this point around the circle until I've straightened this angle out, this is an angle of 180 degrees. This angle at the edge is 90 degrees. So all of those facts that we know from GCSE, now this one isn't explicitly stated in the book, but we know it from GCSE, they can expect you to know it at A-level, okay? So all of those circle theorems, it might be worth digging out your old GCSE revision notes or your old GCSE revision guide and just having that page of circle theorems next to you. It's possible I've forgotten one or two. What else is there? If you've got two tangents to a circle, then this length and this length are both the same. So two tangents to a circle meet at a point. The distance from the point to the circle is the same for both tangents. It might be worth having that page that you made last year for your GCSE revision, or the page from the revision guide with these on it, just photocopied and sitting next to you while you do chapter 6, so that you've got those sort of fresh to your hand if you need them. And if you're getting stuck on a question, maybe one of those facts will help you. So in section 6.5, we also have something which I'm not sure, depending on the GCSE syllabus, but I know that on some GCSE syllabus this hasn't really been part of it, but this is another circle theorem kind of bit of information, which is this: if you have any 3 points, you can always draw a circle that goes through those 3 points. So another way of saying that is you can always inscribe a triangle inside a circle for any triangle. So this is called the Circum Circle, and the centre of the circle is called the Circum Center of the triangle. And it's called the Circum Center rather than just the centre because there are different ways of defining the centre of a triangle. And I'm not going to go into that now. If you're interested, have a Google. I think there's 3 different ways that sort of make sense of what we could mean by the centre of a triangle. Maybe there's more. I don't remember off the top of my head. But it's quite an interesting little area of maths. Perfectly understandable, but not what we're concerned with exactly here. So the centre of the circle is called the Circum Center, and the circle is called the Circum Circle for this triangle. And if you know a triangle, you can also do this. Perpendicular bisector of this side is here. Now the perpendicular bisector, if you remember your GCSE loci, all the points on this line are equidistant from this point here and this point here. Do the same thing for this line, perpendicular bisector. Do the same thing for this line, perpendicular bisector. And you should find those 3 points cross. And this point here, because it's on this line, is equidistant from these 2 points. Because it's on this line, it's equidistant from these 2 points. And because it's on this line here, it's equidistant from these 2 points. Okay? And so if we then draw a circle, this point here is the same distance away from there, and the same distance away from there, and the same distance away from there, and that's the centre of the circle. These three must be the radius of the circle, because the circle goes through this point, and it goes through this point, and it goes through this point, and it's the same distance away from all of those points. The centre of the circle is the same distance away from all those points, because it is, well, because it's a circle and those points are on the edge. So the technique they're using there, there's a bit of a sort of idea of why that makes sense. Not a formal mathematical proof, but just something to give us a bit of an intuition there. So to find the equation of, if you find the equation of the perpendicular bisectors for two of the chords, and you find the point of intersection of those two, i.e. you take those two equations and you solve them simultaneously, that will give you the centre of the circle, because you're using this idea of the circumcenter of that triangle, and that triangle being the one that if I added in a line there in my textbook, then I'd have a triangle, and there we go, that's what we're doing. So that's the lot, that's everything in chapter 6. The questions get difficult because the material is put together with all sorts of things from all over the place, and you're expected to see the thing to use at different points. You might not be ready to use this fact, and suddenly you're halfway through a question and that's the one that the examiners are expecting you to use. You can get there with experience, and you can get there by knowing all the material thoroughly. I've talked about that quite a bit in the video for section 6.3, and I've already told you that I've talked about it there. So right, that's the end of this chapter.